This is Pete Moore on Halo Talks NYC on location San Diego. I'm bringing back for his second Halo Talks to give us a full update on the business and his personal life and his visions of the future. Welcome back, Physmodo, Andrew Menter from the state, great state of Texas.
Thank you, Pete. You know what has changed since we last talked is I moved to the great city of San Diego.
No way. How did you keep that in the bag for so long?
I don't know, and I apologize on the behalf of the city for yesterday's downpour.
Yeah. You know, I don't know. We're trying to go to Mars. You know, we're trying to launch satellites and cameras all the way up in the galaxy. I'm like, let's just fix the weather, dude. Let's control the weather. We try and control everything else. Just control the weather.
You know, Pete, there are three buckets you can characterize anything. Things you can control, things you can influence, and things you can neither control nor influence.
That sounds like a great mission statement or mode of guidance towards starting up a software company.
Yes, especially when you don't know anything about software.
Exactly. So you go down your yellow brick road and then things seem to just kind of change like the weather.
Something like that.
Positive things that, you know what the best part of is? Only over the last 100 years have you been able to be told what the weather is. Like 200 years ago, we were like, yo, is it going to rain tomorrow? Like, I have no idea, right? How would you know?
Well, I had to pick up someone at Coronado today, and if I would have had to get out my Rand McNally map. But now I put on, there's this thing called Google Maps. Super
Amazing,
cool, Pete.
Right?
Try it.
Speaking of enhancements in technology, see how my voice just broke there?
And do you like the segue I gave you?
Yeah, I did that on purpose.
Thank you.
So we're talking about software, and we're talking about the changes that you can make and the pivots that you make and how enhancements in technology pretty much changes everything. So people who have not listened to part one of the part two mini-series that we've put together here on Physmodo. Last time we were together, we talked about putting devices in the clubs that was going to do 3 squats. Going to tell you how flexible you were. I did it. And right thereafter, I did some personal training because my score was not very high on the flexibility chart. So take us from there to now.
Well, if you didn't listen to that first podcast, I definitely would go back and listen. But a lot has changed, Pete. We have an assessment that does 3. You do 3 overhead squats. You can self-assess. You don't actually need a trainer or anyone else there. And we measure your mobility, your stability, posture, and symmetry. Point out where you may have some movement deficiencies, and then give you some corrective exercises to try and improve. And we partner with TRX for a number of years, and a form factor is what's changed the most because we're still doing the exact same assessment. But it used to be on this, big Dell monitor, separate depth camera, and a kiosk, which was great, looked good, but not very scalable. Now we have it on the iPad that can sit in a gym or chiropractic office or anywhere else, and there's a consumer app for you to do it at home.
And that consumer app is under the same brand?
It is under Physmodo. So it was TRX Maps powered by Physmodo, and now we're just Physmodo.
So as you think about your business, and obviously there's plenty of businesses that go to market in different channels, let's talk about the bricks and mortar. Most of the audience here is going to be operators that are trying to optimize their unit economics. That's one of the reasons why people listen to this, get ideas on how to optimize their business. So talk about how people are using the iPad, how it's built into their sales process, PT, general population, other ways that people are using this as a tool for engagement or for assessment.
Sure, I think where I don't think it's novel to say that movement is a problem. I mean, half of Americans go see a doctor every year because of musculoskeletal injuries. I mean, we look at things like biometrics. We wake up and understand how did we sleep? What's our HRV? What's our resting heart rate? But musculoskeletal, we feel like we need something that we can measure that's very, very quick, and that's why we did what we do. So a personal trainer can visit with a client and in 30 seconds be able to have a guide for how that training session is going to be. So, Pete, I'm training you. You walk in one day, and your lower body mobility is not so good. Well, we're not going to do deadlifts with you today.
Got it.
If you come in as a first-time person, I'm going to do your assessment, and we see, okay, Pete, maybe you have some poor shoulders. Let's do a few personal training sessions here, maybe work on that shoulder mobility so you can get back to playing golf or, whatever your passion is.
When you look at the iPad, using that, you're my personal trainer. You work out. We work out for 4 weeks, and then we do a reassessment, right? And I'll do the same exact evaluation. That data goes up into my system to see how much more flexible I am or how stronger I am. Is that information then being pushed into any of my other kind of data depositories yet, whether that's my iPhone, whether that's my Fitbit, or wherever I'm potentially collecting data? And then I have a follow-up question.
Yeah, so on the club side, yes. So we're integrated with we're in every single stretch lab, and so all that data then gets ported over to Club Ready. And then on the consumer side, it is just within the device, within your iPhone or Android or whatever you may have.
Gotcha. When you take a look at the importance of MSK as, like, if I was to force rank, what do I hope that my mind and my body is able to do at this age? How important is, like, having a strong core, being flexible, and having mobility or flexibility versus other things that I might have good attributes at. Maybe I'm like, I have good instinct on catching a football. I can play pickleball, or I'm good at billiard. I don't know. Like, how important is, like, if you're not flexible and you're not functional and you're not strong, like, that probably is, like, what percentage of future problems?
Well, if you can't move well, you should do billiards instead of pickleball.
Right.
Because you don't have to move that.
Well, doubles pickleball is not that bad, but I agree with you. I was trying to throw out sporting examples from.
Yeah, well, I don't want to say that we can diagnose anything because we can't, but we do know that certain things will portend injury. So if your hip mobility is poor, if you have poor core stability, that is going to create problems with your lower back, very likely, because you're compensating. So it's not your lower back problem might not it's generally not because something's going on with your lower back. That's not the cause. It's something else. So what we're trying to do is identify issues that, evidence will say, hey, if you have this particular inefficiency, it could potentially lead to this. If you have poor shoulder mobility, do too much push press, and you're going to have a rotator cuff problem. And so we're just trying to identify things before they happen. Mm-hmm. And, certainly as a personal trainer, you can adjust your personal training, and keep your client healthy.
When you take a look at how you score it, what's the new scoring system?
Well, that's been an issue all along because we've gone with this norm-based scoring where we have thousands and thousands in the database, and your average score is 50. So someone rocks in and they'll get, I've seen it this week at the show, they'll rock in and get a 62 and think, well, hell, I suck. But the fact is you're in the, 80-something percentile. And so, yeah, we've thought about moving to grade school scoring, but no.
I like the scoring component of this because, one, I think I did it. I think I got a 34 or a 44 when I did it. That was years ago.
It's not good.
I know it's not good.
Yeah.
And my question was that if I put my hat on as a head of personal training who's listening to this podcast, or head of sales, or head of ancillary revenue, or chief revenue officer, and I say, look, the average person that first does this assessment, if they are deconditioned or they don't really do any yoga or stretching or anything in that flexibility orbit, they're going to probably be below 40%.
Correct.
Just walk down this path with me. If they are below 40%, psychologically, we have found that 80% of the people don't like being at 40% and actually want to pay to fix that. That to me is like, okay, here's an iPad, here's the Physmodo, let's get going. Like, that's basically all you need to know, is that the scoring results result in a specific behavior. Almost 9 out of 10 of dentists agree, type of thing.
What I think is pretty cool is that if someone has, let's make this up, has 25% body fat. You want to get down to whatever 20%. That's going to take
Just for the
some
audience
time.
right now, I'm way below that right now.
Oh, I know. I wasn't
okay.
using you as
Okay,
okay.
just
You're going to
'cause you
use
were-
an example.
No,
okay,
you're just staring at me, man.
That's
It's just
'cause
like
we're
you
talking,
freaking
dude.
me. Oh, okay, fine.
Okay, so you rock in. You're at 12%. You want to get down to 8. Those things don't happen overnight. Whether you're at 25 trying to get to 20, whether you're at 12 trying to get to 8, that takes time. And that's great. What I love about what we do is I can score you. We can measure. You'll get a 40. I can work on you with. We can do some foam rolling. We can do percussion device. We can do anything, and 3 minutes later you'll have a better score. So we can get that instant gratification that apparently is really important in our society. But the point is that you, as a personal trainer, in next to no time, can show how you can help me move better.
You make a really interesting point out because one of the things that I'm preaching for 2023 to health club operators and studio operators, make it hard for the member to break up with me. Like, I'm going to know so much about you. I'm going to show you such results, and it's going to be hard for you to leave this relationship. What you've just said and the sequencing of like the narrative and the messaging is like, hey, let's get on here. You're going to get a 44, okay? We're going to do some foam rolling, and I'm going to take you through like what we would do in a session. It's going to get you to 49. It's going to get you to 52. And say, look, if you get on a 60-day program or 90-day program, 100% of the people are above an 85. I don't know. To me, that seems like a Candyland roadmap that's super interesting for somebody based on using an iPad to convince someone with data that like, this is what you need to do and this is where you get to. It's not really, not much more science to it except you got to put in the work.
And yeah, so here was a big moment, which was in the summer of 2018. My shoulders are terrible. I always score in the 20s, specifically on my shoulders. I was at a TRX summit, and Therabody was one of the vendors. And so one of the women scored in my 20s, my usual 20s. She worked on me for a few minutes. I rescored. My shoulders were a 90.
Wow.
Now
that might be too high.
It is really
because it's a temporary. It's a temporary.
Well,
90.
that's the point.
That's the question. Yeah.
It's exact. So when I rocked in the next morning, I was back in my 20s. And the point being, she showed me how to get to a 90. Now, imagine I'm working with that person consistently a couple times a week. After a certain period of time, I will be consistently much higher. So I am showing you right away as a personal trainer, I can make you better through whatever means. That's not going to be permanent, but work with me for that 60 to 90 days, and we can get you there on a more permanent basis.
You know what I think would be super interesting? Yes or no?
I don't.
Okay.
What you're thinking.
So here's what I think would be super interesting. Do you know, when you go to a carnival and you shoot the water and it like the either the balloon rises or like the thing goes all the way up to the top, and the frog or something, but it's all based. If you had like a scoring of like here's all the people that came in this month and here's where they were on the chart. And like 90 days later, here's where everybody is. Almost like that carnival ride. Like that thing would just be like, wow, man. Like if that person falls, they're probably not going to break anything. Like it's so, I just don't know why people don't do this more regularly and like go through. If you told me how many accounts you have right now, you don't have to tell me right now. After people listen to this, why would you not do this? Or what's the cost of getting on board with this?
There's no reason not to do it. So going back to the beginning, when we had this form factor of the Dell monitor and kiosk, etc., the COGS were pretty high. There was a lot involved there, and so we had an MSRP of $7,500. That's a reason not to do it.
Well, that's with the hardware device.
Well, exactly. And so now there's no for a gym. There's no upfront cost. You have your iPad. And MSRP is $349 a month.
That's the licensing fee?
Yeah, that's it.
Per location.
Per location. So
unlimited number of users?
Unlimited number of users.
That will be limited by the time we're done with this podcast, but it'll be unlimited with an asterisk.
And so how many personal training sessions do you have to sell? Not many. And the reason why,
probably 3
for
a week.
California prices may be 1.5.
Yeah, exactly.
So the big change in our company from when we last spoke was this transition in form factor from the Dell to using this on an iPad.
Yeah,
that
huge.
development took 3 years.
All right.
And so now we're rocking and rolling. And it's very scalable. It's simple. We're talking to a lot of gyms here that have 70, 80 locations, and it can get rolled out really quickly.
A question related to how you went to market with the last partnership, right? TRX Maps, powered by Physmodo. If I am a health club chain, and let's just hypothetically say it's called Pete's Health and Fitness, and I've got 100 locations, is my marketing this as, Pete's, flexibility challenge, or Pete's, onboarding, and then it's powered by Physmodo? Or are we trying to create like Physmodo, come to Physmodo, and then we'll educate people on what that brand means?
So I actually should have mentioned this earlier, but yeah, we've branded it as Move, MVE.
Okay.
Because everyone takes a word and takes out a vowel.
Oh, yeah.
So we wanted it to be part of that. And so, it's a movement validation engine.
I like it. MVE. Get your MVEs here. So that's a super interesting pivot to the business, where we basically unplugged the hardware, unplugged the cost barrier, and basically providing results to anybody who's available.
Pretty much.
From an iPad.
So we've
I think we've cracked the code, my friend.
Something like that.
Damn, we're out of here. Add the O back.
Are we done? So we partnered with BeaverFit. We signed a partnership with them a couple weeks ago to help with the distribution, similar to what we had with TRX. And we've talked to a couple friendlies a few months ago, and because they were friendlies, they had the $7,500 MSRP in mind, and they said, look, you could charge more. And yeah, maybe we could, but I think it's we want to make sure everyone gets a great return, and they can get a great return by selling a couple personal training sessions, and hey, everyone wins.
Look, you can always put up, incremental services and analytics, and that becomes, incremental to the model as well. So I like where things are at right now. I'm excited for you. Now you can be a SaaS company without anyone saying there's a little bit of hardware in there. That's a nice thing to be able to shed off your business model for those naysayers.
Exactly. SaaS models, unfortunately, aren't like 20 or 30x top line, but they're still pretty good. So.
Yeah, then that'll come back, man. That's why we study history. It comes right back around again. Yeah. All right, man. Well, great work. I'm sure it takes a lot of fortitude and passion and energy to get from point A to point B, and in the middle of a pandemic, which doesn't help anybody or myself during that period of time. So congrats on getting to the other side and coming out, I think, in the right spot, in the right place, at the right time. So awesome.
I think so. Thanks, Pete.
Awesome.